PG.
Hi, welcome to Ellis Talker Show. I'm DB LeBron. Do you have construction needs? Maybe you want to get a pergola. Maybe you need your roof done. Check out K&H Construction. They're a local firm out of Waxahachie, Chris Helms. He'll take care of you and let him know DB LeBron sent you. Today, my very special guest is Navy veteran, native holy man, and author, Mr. D. Paul Fleming. How you doing, brother?
Hey, my friend, how are you?
Good, good. I love having veterans that are doing things, positive things to make the world better, especially ones that do it for our brothers and sisters in arms. So I want to lead off by thanking you for the things, and we're going to talk about some of the things that you've been into, but for the things that you have done to help our brothers and sisters in arms, brother. Thank you.
I'm a Navy guy. Went in the military at 17. Had a guy with a black robe that was really encouraging me to get it done. Come back with a signed an MOS and a letter, right? Mm-hmm. So I did. Delayed entry. Went in the Navy. I was bored in boot camp. I was all gung ho. I literally came out of boot camp in worse shape than I went in because I was prepared, right? But I got an extra stripe out of boot, and then I went to A school. Got 3 letters of commendation and piped through that and hit the fleet in record time, became a qualified submariner. Read a book on my second deployment, I think. And that book turned out to be Tom Clancy's Hunt for Red October. Well, if you've never seen Tom Clancy's, if you never read his book or you never saw the movie with Sean Connery, The Hunt for Red October, right? That's the boat I was on. The USS Dallas, SSN 700. That's it, doing a emergency blow, testing his ballast.
Oh yeah. Those fast attacks you did time, and that's a fast attack, right?
That's a fast attack, and let me tell you something. It's fast. They put me topside to do a transfer when we're in those places that I don't. Mm-hmm. You know, where you're not.
Where you're not.
And the damn boat and the service ship ran me over. Damn near killed me.
Ouch.
Tried to kill me. Thought it was dead. Was unconscious for 30 hours.
Ouch. Yeah,
The cool part is that I was floating above the submarine watching them pull me out of the ocean.
Wow.
Not the first time, and it wasn't the last, but yeah.
We have a similar story in that it was a black robe that encouraged me to do something really drastic with my life. And I ended up showing up the next month with the contract for the Navy and went off from there. It was I wouldn't trade it for the world. I believe that God had his hand in it, even if I didn't believe that at that time, but he had his hand on it. And that was what needed to happen in order to change my life in a better direction. And plus that time in the Navy and the people that I met and the brother sisterhood that got after that, it is beautiful. We're vets, we're Navy vets. We don't know each other, but we would help each other in a minute.
In a heartbeat.
We would just do it without question. So I love that relationship that I've gotten. But like a lot of people who got out, and I got out in 06. I was 96 to 06. Came back with issues that I had to deal with, just like you did. Talk to me about that.
Yeah. Well, I got to put it right out there. A book that I published last year, A Date with Suicide, spells out what happened to me from military to getting discharged to VA. And then in a nutshell, I was given a medical evaluation in a closet for 5 minutes after a 2-day, 22-hour marathon of seeing absolutely nobody and stumbling through the 1980s version of the VA, which is best described as Tom Cruise's movie, Born on the 4th of July, when he's dealing with the VA. That's what my get out of the military experience with VA was. It was a mess. It was on the 7th floor of Boston. Mm-hmm. It was piss, and it was in the hallways. There were bodies, and it was PTSD produced by VA, right? And as a 22 at the time when my 4-year active was up. They couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. They said, you can stay and we can figure out if we can retire you. And that's pretty much what they did. Long story short, that's what they did. But my experience with the VA for the first 10 years was just a nightmare. And then for the next 10 years, it's almost like they brushed by the Vietnam vets and started dealing with guys like me. And then the next wave, they brushed by us and went to the 1990 guys and then the 2000. And now you talk to guys from World War II who will tell you, for the most part, they love the VA, right? But that was back when the VA was 98% manned by veterans. And then fast forward to my time in there, post-Vietnam, it is what every Vietnam veteran says. Okay, it was that and a bag of chips, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I stayed in the fight, fought my ass off to help veterans. And at one point I had the direct cell phone for the Secretary of VA back when I was part of Vet Force, doing 10 years as a board member down in DC. And we were helping vets, helping them get into appointments, helping them with their medications, dealing with the bureaucracy. So I did that for, Christ, 30 years. And then I finally said, I got to figure out what's best for me, because I was heading right down the path of what Rick Weidman said. Rick Weidman spent his life as the number 2 in charge of all of Vietnam Veterans of America, the entire organization. He was a number 2 guy. If you Google him via Rick Weidman, he was a medic in Vietnam and so on, but he's done a hell of a lot for veterans. Anyway, I got out of that mess. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that experience that you talk about, and I'm grateful that my experience was a little bit better. We all had our challenges. Every generation had its challenges, because when we got back, they threw every damn pill they could at you. And then they said, oh, we can't be throwing those pills at them. We're killing them. And then they just pulled them away. And then there was a lot of vets that were left with dependency issues. Now, as far as what you were saying with 80s VA, I saw that with my dad. I remember going to the VA in New York, and I've told this story before, but it's just a poignant story. I was a little boy with my dad, and we were walking by the VA, and right in the front, there was a dude laying there. And to this day, I think he was dead. I'm pretty sure he was dead. He looked like he'd been laying there for quite some time, laid out. And my dad looks at him, he points at him and looks at me. He goes, son, that's how America takes care of its veterans. That's what America thinks of its veterans. Dad was Vietnam vet, Marine. And that was the experience that he had. And that is shocking. Some of the things that you guys had to do in your generation had to go through that I didn't. And I'm grateful for where we are now, but I still think about guys like you. That my dad, it was crazy. He died, and about 2 weeks after he died, he got the letter from the VA that they approved his claim. And he died in 92. He'd been back since what, 71, I think it was. Yeah, that's when he got 2 weeks after he died. Hey, congratulations, you got your VA. You got your 10%. That was the VA.
10%?
Yeah, he got his real 10%. Yeah. But you went and fought that, and you wrote a book on suicide. Tell me, how did you overcome? Because this is a subject I like to talk about, because we're losing too many brothers and sisters in arms. They survived a war, but they choose to leave because they can't handle what's going on with them right now. And it sucks that we have to lose so many. So tell me about that journey and the book, how that ended up translating into a book.
Yeah. So again, I'll say that my journey is not one that I wish upon anybody. Right. And I could not figure out for any reason why anybody would want to hear about my story, let alone read about it. Right. And then I learned one of the reasons that veterans are killing themselves at record pace, more than 50 a day, regardless of the 22 or the 17. I've done all the research, and it's north of 50 a day, full stop. Okay.
Damn.
For me, it started a couple of years after I got out of the military. Shipmate called up, said, "Hey, I haven't seen him in years, a couple of years, right?" And it was a week before Super Bowl, and he says, "Hey, it's Randy. I got to talk to you." I said, "All right, listen, I got a wife and kids now, and I'm working, and Well, how about if we get together next week? He's like, yep, sounds good. So I said, all right, I'll call you. This is back when you had rotary phones and
Yeah.
cell phones, right?
Right.
So that was it. I just said, I'll call you in a week, right? So a week goes by, I call him, and this lady's on the phone. I have no idea who this broad is. And she's screaming at me and cussing at me. And I'm like, finally I said, listen, lady, I don't know what the fuck you are. Right? What Randy on the phone? He called me last week. I told him I'd call him back, and I'm going to keep my word. I'm going to hook up with him, and we're going to go have a couple beers and talk about life. You have a problem with that? Take it up with Randy, but put him on the damn phone. Phone goes quiet. And then she says, you don't know, do you? I said, I don't know what. She says, you're the guy he called. Now I'm putting it together.
Oh,
Right after he got off the phone with you, he went outside and hung himself. Don't call here again. Click. That was my introduction to veteran suicide. So that story stuck with me, along with the guilt and the pain that goes with losing a shipmate, right? When you lose a veteran you don't know, it hurts all of us.
Mm-hmm.
When you lose a veteran, one that you fought with 120 other guys to do what's right, do your job, that was tough. So it stayed with me, but it was the one thing that kept whispering in the back of my head, don't forget this pain and don't do it to somebody else. That and my faith is what kept me from ending the pain. Again, I don't say I was suicidal. I say I wanted to end the pain, the spiritual pain and the emotional pain. It wasn't one thing. It was all four corners of my existence. Right?
Yeah. All three times, brother. All three times that I wanted to end the pain. Physical pain, the screws in my back, my brain, the way it was working, not working, and how I destroyed my life when I was in that tunnel. And for me, and just like you, for me, it was faith. It's been about 8-9 years now, probably 9 years. I dedicated myself again to Christ. And like I say in any show that I talk about this, find your purpose. I don't care what you do, brother or sister, just don't quit. It may not be God for you. It may be something else, but find your purpose. For me, it was God, and I believe that is the way. But hey, that might not be your cup of tea right now. I hope it will be, but it may not be. Just don't quit. That said, but brother, it was a time when I went and I begged God. I said, God, please, if you could just put this stuff together and help me some way, some shape or form, I'll never turn from you again. And I haven't. And he has blessed me beyond measure, and things have, I love life, man. I love life. I love helping others. And I live by being kind to people. And that's the purpose that he gave me. But it sounds like you went through the same journey. Now, what I find interesting is that you tapped into your Native American side too, and how you squared the two. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, my road, if you will, had two tracks running side by side. One is what normal people try to do in life, right? And then what happens to them. And for me, I've had the gift of being able to see spirit and ghosts and all that paranormal stuff as far back as I can ever remember. And I spent a lifetime trying to get away from that, right? So until I started embracing it, and for me, that was part of the embrace of spirituality, the four corners of our existence, our physical, our mental, our spiritual, and our emotional bodies. We've got to get all four of those in line for us to be balanced. And I simply wasn't balanced. I wasn't even close to being balanced. I didn't have a starting point. I didn't have a grounding point, and I didn't know where to start. But I didn't want to stop fighting to find a way, and I stumbled through all kinds of stuff. But every time I fell back, so to speak, on my faith, I split the hair of loving the baby Jesus and my Native American culture and heritage. I lean on both of them equally.
It's tell me about that, because like Native American, and holy man. What does that entail? How did you come to embrace that? Because a lot of times those are things that unfortunately back in different times, it's not something that you wanted to embrace. Sometimes it was just society told you don't embrace that side of you. You decided to embrace that side of you. And what does that entail?
Yeah, that's a great lead in, because my grandfather jumped the reservation, but he fled the boarding schools, went back to the reservation, and his mother said, listen, you come here, they're going to come get you. So he jumped the reservation and went and joined the Navy, claiming he was white, and never picked up his Native American heritage. I got a great picture of his tombstone up in I can't remember the name of it now, Fort Snelling in Minnesota. And he retired as a lieutenant commander in 1965. He went in 36 or 37, joined the Navy. And he was 15. Got away with it. Was in the Pacific when they attacked Pearl Harbor. Did a handful of war patrols. I got some of his records. Submarine war patrols off the sea, out in the sea, off Japan and up in the northern part of the Pacific. And then ended up doing submarine training out in Wisconsin. Lord knows I didn't know they built submarines in Wisconsin. Floated them out in the lakes and then run them down the river. Very few people know this.
I didn't know that.
He made submarines in the middle of the country and tested them in the Great Lakes and floated them down the what's it, Hudson, right? Mm-hmm. Anyway, so my grandmother, I'm sorry, my mother, the same thing. She was reluctant to trying to say a lot about it, but we were part of the North American Indian Club. They're now big time casinos now. But yeah, it wasn't something you bragged about, but for me, I never hid from it. I never shied away from being Native American. I never felt any racism, and there was a lot of the normal banter that we go through. But I was in the military where we didn't give a shit if you were gay or straight or black, white, purple. Nobody fucking cared.
No,
we had a gay guy on the submarine. Nobody fucking cared. Nobody cared. Do what you want. Just stay away from me. It's all good. Right?
Yeah. Just don't hit on me.
Right? Navy, right? Navy submarines. Yeah. Hot racking when you're junior. So 3 guys, 2 bunks, right? The bunk's never empty.
I was not going to mention the hot racking, but yeah.
It ain't fun, but it is what it is, right?
You're right.
But anyway, for me, the more I started leaning back on my roots, what I am, the more I started to find balance and find myself, my true self, not the stuff that we are from our day-to-day lives, but what your higher self is, your soul, your inner self. And that's that. Once I started finding that, some of the pieces started coming into play, and I was able to get into a lot of the battles that I really shouldn't have won. I was able to win because I was more balanced.
And you mentioned about seeing different things like spirits, and I read on you and fighting spirits that are evil spirits that are in your house and stuff like that. Those are things that I believe in. Being Puerto Rican, we had our legends like that, and that kind of stuff was lore inside our culture. Maybe it was the Native American in us, but it was definitely there. So you had actually gotten into that realm. How do you, because as a Christian, you don't want to dabble too much in that. You want to just, hey, in the name of Jesus, go away. That's how normally you get told that. Now you put your native stuff in there and you started fighting these things. Tell me about that. That is something that maybe I just don't know much about.
You mean about going to war with evil?
Yes.
Walking in a room full of ghosts and kind of watching their expression when they realize that you can see them. Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, I didn't know how far this went with you.
So all that stuff on TV, it's child's play. It's child's play. When they say, well, you got an evil spirit here and you should call a native holy man, I'm the one they call. I'm not saying those shows call me. Mm-hmm. I'm saying I'd be the guy you call. But I got to tell you, to me, my Native American beliefs and Christian faith walk hand in glove. Both believe in the Trinity, and it's amazing how much of a parallel is the world of Great Spirit and the world of the baby Jesus are. So when I go into combat with darkness, I call in archangel on down, and I call in all of my spirit guides. I've got some great ancestral Native American guides around me that have been protecting my ass for a lot of decades. I know, a lot of decades. They're the ones that have kept me alive and so on. But so I surround myself with a lot of white light beings, and then I go do what needs to be done. And at one point when I was young, I used to be afraid of ghosts and shit that you can't see. And I tell you, man, when you look at a church, an old Gothic church, and you see these gargoyles and all this, I see that stuff in my real life around people and places. So somewhere along the way, I either didn't gain a healthy fear for the darkness, or when I overcame the fear of not knowing what it was, right? Because a ghost is really just it's a ball of energy, so to speak, or a poltergeist is really just a ball of energy. But when you see shit getting thrown around a room, a chunk of iron gets tossed across the room, it gets your attention, right? Well, now it is what it is, because it's just a ball of energy that if you protect yourself, I'm not saying you won't get hurt, but if you protect yourself, you'll be fine. And again, I walk into these things saying it's a great day to die. Just don't know if it's my day, right? And if it is what it is, because dying's easy. It's living that's hard, right? Absolutely. That's the hard part. But if you want to get into some of the stories, I'm happy to tell you about some of the shit I've cleared out. And
you know what? I'd like to hear at least one of your good ones that you really encountered, because Paul talks about our fight not being in the flesh. It being in the, he talks about that. He's very explicit about it, that we battle things that are spiritual, that are bigger than us. And I truly believe that I believe that demons, if you're saved, demons can't inhabit you, but they can mess with you. They can sit there in your ear. They can mess with you big time. And I think that they do mess with a lot of veterans. Hey, you're not good enough. Hey, that kid you shot in Iraq, that was you. You're terrible. You're garbage. Just the things that are whispered in your ear. I know that they can do that. That's biblical. Talk to me about that. Mix that in.
So that's not just at the demon level. That's at all levels of darkness. Okay. But you're spot on. I try to talk to, train, teach veterans that once you go down the path of going through the military, just boot camp alone changes you. Period. Full stop. You go to boot camp, you're not the same person. You'll never be the same person again. You have been militarized. Period. Okay. And if you join the military, that's what you're supposed to be, right?
Right.
When you go through trauma, and again, for some people, boot camp is trauma, right? So when I was in boot camp, one of the guys tried killing himself, right? So I guess that was my first suicide, was in boot camp, watching a kid try to kill himself. But why? Because it was too traumatic for him, right? Boot camp was boring to me, but it wasn't to this kid. So what I've learned is trauma is no person has the right or the ability to evaluate or judge another person's trauma. For me, boot camp is a walk in the park. For this guy, it was too much. He had to hack his wrists with a Bic razor, right? Okay, because he wanted out that badly. But once you cross the level of going through a trauma that's significant enough for you, my position is you actually get to look behind the veil. Okay? When you've gone through trauma, like for me, when I got run over by the submarine and I was unconscious for 30 hours, I remember floating over the boat and watching. It's not the first time it's happened to me. Hopefully it'll be the last, right? Our next last is when I get to finally go back and go home, go back to the spirit world. Anyway, those levels of trauma open you up to things. For me, I could see things and I could feel things that were there, right, while I was watching myself being pulled out of the ocean. Okay. So once you open yourself up to that trauma, you've opened yourself up to what's behind the veil. Here comes the danger. If you don't know how to protect yourself, you're open to everything. Listen, the reason they call alcohol spirits is because when you drink it, you open yourself up to the spirit world. That's where the original term came from. Okay. Was it 1400s or so? 1300s. Yeah. You open yourself up to the spirit world. When I don't drink much very often anymore. Yeah. When I used to drink, man, it was more to get rid of the anxiety but good Lord, did it open up things that I could see. So I knew then that even drinking, I could see more shit than I would if I wasn't drinking. Okay. So what are some of the things I've seen? Let me the tricksters, or I like to call them low-level demons. I never want to give a demon high marks, so I'm always going to say they're low-level demons, or as I call them, tricksters. I was working in my garden one day with my wife, and I got this 7-foot-tall Native American guide that's always with me. Okay, he comes, he's standing in the garden, just materializes. He's standing in the garden, he's looking at me, and he starts pointing. Okay, and I'm like, oh fuck, man. So this goes on for a couple of days. It was spring, and my wife and I were planting, right? And I'm getting the message, all right? And he wasn't talking to me, but I was getting this no. Okay, we want you to go do something. So I looked at my wife and I said, man, what the fuck? He's pointing over here. What do you think he's saying? And my wife, without batting a lid, he says, he needs you to go clear this person. I won't use her name, right? And I'm like, yeah, that sounds right. All right. So my wife reaches out and says, hey, listen, the spirit world tells us we need to come see you. So as we're driving there, my wife's driving and I'm preparing. It's a long process. And as we're getting 5-10 miles from the place, I can feel the anger boiling. Okay. And I can see the spirits throwing the spirit world at me. All right. You can feel the anger. So when you look at veterans, and I'm going to dance between two stories. Okay. So when I see veterans and I see them panicking, okay, and it's like they're having this argument, one or the other. Okay. Now hold that thought for a moment. Move back over here. I'm on my way to clear out this low-level demon, right? And all these dark spirits are just coming at me, bombarding me with everything from my emotions to sadness to they're hitting me with all these emotions and these feelings that are not mine. Okay. Now I'm used to it now, so I know how to deal with it, and I've been training for some time, and I know what to do to get it out of me and keep it from coming back. Okay. But this is 5-10 miles before I get to this place. And I said, oh, this is going to be a fun one. This is going to be a freaking adventure. My wife gets real quiet and she says, there's some dark shit there, Doug. And I really don't feel the dark stuff. I'm told it's there. I can see it, so on, but I don't feel it. I've protected myself well enough, but my wife can feel it plain as day. Okay. Plain as day. Right. Anyway, we get to this place and man, talk about the Amityville horror take 2. Right.
Whoa.
I go into this place and I'm like, look, I'm giving you the cliff notes. Okay. Yeah. So I had to say, all right, this one's got a lot to do here. So I had to go get a 4-man team. You know,
what?
Strategic withdrawal. Okay. And I went and reached out to some folks I work with and put 4 of us together. And we went in there. We cleared that place for about 6 hours. It took us to round up all the darkness. And to date, one of the folks I can do this with, one of the folks I invited in that day had said that was the second toughest one that they'd ever done. All right. And she said, one of them said, I got a feeling that something's coming back. Well, sure as shit. Well, the time goes by and my Native American guide standing in the garden going, right?
Oh my.
So we go back, same routine, but it was a lot weaker. On the periphery, it was weaker. Okay, there was still darkness out there, but we put up a bubble of protection, blah, blah, blah. So I get in the house and I can see it plain as day, right? But it's dressed in a tuxedo, an Abe Lincoln hat, okay? This is why I call them tricksters, because they will dress up to look like kids. This guy I was talking with recently, he said a medium told him that the kid in the wheelchair is trying to communicate with him. And I said, yeah, that kid's a darkness. Mm-hmm. You don't want to be, man, he turned blue. All right. Anyway, I went into battle with this trickster. And he did. He tricked me he tricked me once. I think he tricked me a couple times, but once is when it clicked. I was like, oh, you little motherfucker, you're leading me down. I was like, son of, right? Mm-hmm. And as soon as I do that, you can hear the growling, you can hear and my wife and a couple other people I had with her, we're doing sage and we're doing the rosary and bringing in the baby Jesus, and Archangel Michael was outside. And we went to war with this thing, and the spirits came in and captured it, wrapped it up, and took it out of here. Okay. So I want to make sure I say this clearly. I'm just a conduit. All I am is a facilitator. I'm helping God's white light, great spirit's light, move through me to take care of whatever darkness needs to be taken care of. As I like to say, I have no power. It's all God. It just flows through me. That's the trick to understanding how to be a holy man, along with a lot of other things, a lot of balance and so on and so on. But I do the same thing for healing. And if you want to hear some wild healing stories, then have some fun with that.
Before I close out, go into your books and close out, I do ask you, how do we, because you said you had cleared it out, and I imagine that when you go in there, they go into hiding because they know who can and who can't.
Yes.
And how do we foolishly or unknowingly draw those things into our home? How does the home get packed with demons?
So let's start with poltergeist. A poltergeist is nothing more than a collection of negative energy that over time comes together and forms what I like to call a tumbleweed. Okay. You're out in North Texas. I've never seen a tumbleweed actually get created. I've just seen the balls of rolling through the movie set, right?
Yeah.
But it's got to start with one stick blowing through the wind.
Yeah.
So look at it like this. Every time a husband and a wife have an angry, mean-spirited argument in their house, you are generating negative energy. Okay. Now, science has proven that energy never goes away. It just changes form. So your emotional energy that you're using in this battle with your wife or your husband, okay, you're producing this negative energy. Now, the makeup sex may be great, and that might solve the problem, okay? But the negative energy that you spewed out there is sitting in your house, period. And it will stay there until you get it removed or you remove it, okay? Now, that's just one argument. Now, think about that on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, okay?
Mm-hmm.
All the negative shit that flows through a house.
Right. Yeah.
It is a growing tumbleweed. And over time, depending on how much negative shit you throw at this thing, it will start feeding off of your negative energy. And then, once it has enough energy, it will develop its own conscience. Hence, it'll start throwing shit around. I've dealt with those things far too many times. When I was a child, it used to scare the hell out of me. Now I just know what it is, so I know how to get rid of it. So that's how it starts at its lowest level. Okay? But again, you have a negative argument one day. My God, you don't have to sage the house and bring in a holy man, bring a priest. I had an argument. No. But every so often, every month, every quarter, twice a year, spring cleaning, fall cleaning, right? Go through your house with sage, go through your house with a priest, go through your house and just bring white light in and ask God to clear out all negative energy. Okay. Now, your question was, how are we open to this? Remember what I said about trauma?
Mm-hmm.
Every trauma we go through, we are a wide open wound. Think about it.
Yes.
We're struggling to find good. We want to freaking scream bloody murder.
Mm-hmm.
And we're trying to survive and move forward. We're wide open just on any trauma, right? You lose a loved one. It's a trauma, okay? Well, if you aren't prepared for it, darkness knows how to get in, okay?
Right.
Darkness doesn't follow universal laws. White light has to, okay? But darkness doesn't. So when you say things like, I wish this person was dead, oh, they're listening. Okay. Or I wish I was, and then you fill in the blank. Oh, they're listening. And that's how it starts. Okay. Ouija boards are the easiest way to explain it to anybody. Your life is just like a Ouija board. If you don't surround yourself in white light and clear out the darkness, you're not balanced, you're not grounded, and you're always under some form of attack. Look at the people that when idiots are out there screaming at them, bah, 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 nothing, they don't even hear it. Okay. Why? Because they're balanced, well-rounded, and they're covered in white light. It just bounces off them. People that are not balanced and protected, man, that stuff kills them, right?
Yeah.
Right? So there's so much to it at times, but break it down to a basic tumbleweed and then think about that for 20, 30, 40 years. And let's go back to veteran suicide. I agree with you. We have to have a purpose. Any person without a purpose is lost. Okay. All right. So by the time we start heading to being 60, Rick Weidman said to me, suicide, the demographics explode from the age of 60 on. And I was hard pressed to believe it until I did enough research and said, okay, yep. And the answer why? Well, when we start hitting 60, we start slowing down. We start winding down and we start losing our purpose. And we've never cleared out and settled these traumas, right? Just the trauma of being a man, okay? A good man takes on all the heat and protects everybody. Tell me I'm wrong.
No,
right?
a good man does.
Maybe it's just a military thing, okay? So all that stuff that we took on, if we don't know how to unload it, we know what's going to happen. It's going to explode, okay? You follow where I'm going and how
I'm going.
we equate to veteran suicide and the darkness and trauma and listening to the other side or seeing the other side of the veil. There's a lot to it. But
no, I can talk to you for days about this because there's just so much there's so much knowledge that you have on this, but bring up something that kind of unrelated but related. The guy who stabbed the Ukrainian girl on that train. Afterwards, he completely was like he didn't know that, and then he talked about somebody told him, and I truly believe that he got inhabited, and that's why. And then they come back and like, oh wow, I did this. Is that? Did you see something in that? Tell me about that.
As soon as I saw that person, I can see it. Yes. And the same thing with the guy that killed Charlie Kirk. Okay.
Oh,
again, I don't want to get into a political discussion.
right.
Okay. It does nothing. It does nothing.
Yeah, I don't do that. Charlie Kirk, the guy who offed him.
Oh, transgender. Okay. When I look at these people and I watch them, okay, they are, then again, I'm not saying all of them. Okay. But from the ones that I see, the ones that are so verbal and insane, okay, they are so wrapped in dark energy. It's sick. Okay. But again, you don't have to be trans to, I shouldn't say that just trans. What I'm saying is because the guy that killed Charlie Kirk and so many of these other ones, it's now what, going to be a pandemic, okay, of all these assassinations and what these people are, their life, okay? Mm-hmm. Well, what's the easiest way for somebody or for the dark forces to get into a living, breathing body? Well, it ain't by somebody that's going to church every Sunday. I'm not saying that there isn't, because there's just as many priestophiles, and I can go on for years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
I know what you're saying.
I know what you're saying. Okay. But the point is that if you're a weak priest, you're having two arguments. If you're over here swearing that you're a third gender, okay, listen, there's nothing here. There's no balance anywhere. So you are so open to this. Okay. Now I'm not saying there isn't transgender people that are out there good. There's people, whatever. It doesn't matter. The point is when we're talking about why do we get opened up to darkness? I'm trying to give real life examples because the guy on the train, I can see the darkness in him, and that kid that just killed Charlie Kirk, I can see the blank stare behind him. That is exactly what I look for when I meet people. When I look for people, I look in their eye, and in the heartbeat, I know their soul. And I mean in a heartbeat, okay? And when I come in a room or get near people, darkness pushes back. Tricksters don't. They all try to hide. My wife and I were looking at a property in a town a few miles away. And when we got to the property, this hawk is up above it doing circles and right-handed circles, screaming. And I wasn't paying attention, right? Can't take your Native American hat off, stupid. What are you doing? We walked through the door. As soon as that door opened, I said, oh, there's a freaking dark one in here. My wife almost puked. And she says, and he's got
Ow.
hostages. And I'm like, what? So now we were just looking at a property for land and my wife's construction company and so on.
Yeah.
Anyway, so now I'm doing an investigation and I'm poking around. And sure enough, this was a very serious dark entity that has control of 3 children. 2 of them I know are true children. There's one in there I still haven't been able to figure out because I didn't have enough time and I wasn't invited in. So because I wasn't invited by the homeowners, it's not I can't do anything. Right? I have to be asked. You follow?
I follow.
I'm going to close that story with this. I can see what happened in here. All right. When we went outside, one of the old 90-year-old neighbors who's kin to these folks that are selling this old farm, she comes walking up the driveway and I look at her and I say, hey, Minnehaha. Man, this woman stopped dead in her tracks and she goes, how the hell did you know my name? And I said, Spirit Guide told me. Okay, so now the lady's eyes are big. And I said to her, I go, so you got to tell me who got killed in that house, who got shot, right? Man, the realtor lost her mind. The lady's like, oh, that nobody was killed. It was somebody was wounded. Somebody was shot and wounded. They weren't killed. And I said, oh, no, they were killed in there. All right. And I said, well, I'll leave it at that. And I'll close that with this. I went to Missouri to see a vets event, Hero Stock. Okay, great event. All right, I don't know if you bumped into those guys. When we were coming back, middle of the night, I said, babe, we got to stop. My wife gets us this hotel. Walk in the room. We can feel this darkness in the room. Hand to God. Soon as we settle in the room, murder. Solve my murder. Solve my murder.
Wow, get out.
I had to turn the light on and tell these conspiracists quiet down. They didn't. My wife and I sat in that room for 6 hours trying to sleep. I was protecting my wife with spiritual protection and so on. I was protected. But she kept waking up hour on the hour saying, there's somebody in my dreams telling me we got to solve this murder. Okay. I said, babe, we ain't solving nothing. We're getting the hell out.
We're gone. Yeah, we're not doing Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, I want to go back and look into that again. You can't just wander into these things. You have to. To me, it's fighting darkness is just like being in the military. Okay, you identify a threat, come back, put together your attack plan, and then ready yourself. Just like special forces, right? You go out there and dress rehearse. I do the same thing. I do a lot of prep work so that I'm safe, whoever's around me is safe, and of course, I don't let something loose.
The thing about this, the thing about Biela's Talker or my show is that the show was catered to the guest. I always wanted it to be about the guest that came on. And so I found you a whole lot more interesting than I would be. I'm not as interesting as my guests. And that's why I love to have you guys on and telling your story. Before I close out, I do want to talk about your book because you're releasing or just released a book. And I read it was, what is it, Elizabeth? She twice killed. How do you twice killed?
So, right? You got to read the book to find out, but I'm going to tell you right now. In the mid 1700s, she was the first woman hanged in the newly being formed part of Windham County, Connecticut. Okay? But she wasn't hanged once. She was hanged twice. Okay? The locals in the village of Windham Center, all right? Again, this is post-witch trial, so they couldn't burn her at the stake.
Right.
So they hung her once and it didn't take. They had to hang her twice. And the second hanging, her father, who was racing to the Capitol to get a pardon from the governor, the British governor, okay? He was within musket shot of his daughter's noose with her swinging, all right?
Wow.
With the pardon in her hand when the noose stopped twitching. But they had to hang this woman twice, okay?
Wow.
You want to get into spooky and the spirit world and what's going on at the Windham Inn, okay? At the heart of this, the hanging says it was because she had a child out of wedlock and then left the child in the woods to die. And that's just their story.
Right.
The spirit world told me the rest of the story, to steal a phrase from Paul Harvey, the late, great Paul Harvey.
Yes.
The rest of the story. Okay. And that
Yeah.
gets started right here in book 1, The Feral Feline, right? Mysteries
Yeah.
at the Windham Inn. It's only the beginning, baby. I posted a picture that I took of one of the windows.
Uh-huh.
There has to be 7 or 8 faces, spirit faces in this window. Okay. I've got a
Mhm.
great gift of being able to take photographs and have ghosts in them, man. It's pretty cool.
No, I love it, man.
Buy my
Again,
book, people.
buy the book. Go check out the book. I'm definitely gonna go get the book.
Mysteries of the Windham Inn.
I definitely want to read it. My brother, thank you so much for what you do, and thank you so much for sharing your story, and then even about the stuff that the holy man stuff, and then talking about the demons that we don't see and how they affect us. I'm grateful to God that I have a brother like you across the country doing your thing. I am. Thank you for what you do. Again, can you stick around real quick after the show?
Of course I can.
Thank you, brother.